Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, or whatever the case may be. My name is Marcus, and I am the host of the Black Brazil Today YouTube channel, as well as the creator and editor of the blackbraziltoday.com blog, where I analyze Brazil from the perspective of race. So this is my third in a series of videos where I wanted to explore relationships in Brazil a little bit more, some of the outcomes of what's going on in these relationships, why some of these things are happening. Um, it's part of a bigger study because I want to get into what's causing such high rates of divorce in Brazil these days. And, like I said, the reason why I want to explore this is because I know that Brazil is a country where a lot of particularly American men have expressed interest in getting to know Brazilian women. As I've always said to people, don't just jump on a plane and come to a country. Don't bother to learn about the culture. Don't bother to learn any Portuguese. Learn a little bit about, what you're stepping off into. I don't think Brazil is so drastically different from the United States that you can't adapt to, the lifestyle. But, there are these nuances that are quite different from what you might experience in your home country. If you're in the United States, for example. And then there are things that are so similar that you feel right at home. So I wanted to understand, as I've said, just looking at how relationships work in Brazil. When you talk about a foreigner dating a Brazilian, in this case, we're talking about a Brazilian woman. What is it that you can expect with dealing with a Brazilian woman? Are they completely different from dealing with American women or British women or French women or wherever they might be from? How are Brazilian men dealing with Brazilian women? That's a whole other topic that I want to explore. And as I've said before, this topic doesn't necessarily touch on race at all, but as Black Brazilian men and women are, obviously part of the male and female population, this indirectly speaks of them as well. That's something I will have to explore separately. But for now, let's talk about, in the previous videos, we talked about um, infidelity in Brazil, dating apps or extramarital affair apps that people are using, the numbers that are coming out that where one says that, well, there's two women for every man on this extramarital affair app. Everybody is familiar with, well, a lot of people are familiar with Ashley Madison. So when I read this article today, a couple of things came to mind just in my experiences traveling and living in Brazil. One particular trip I remember making, it was a family that I really knew very well in the state of Bahia, and they decided to take me on one of their family trips. At that time, it was a couple of hours to get to where we were going on the interior of Bahia. And I remember being on a freeway and I'm seeing this, like, on the other side of the highway, I saw this like building, and it seemed to have like if you've ever gone to like Walgreens, if you're going to pick up a prescription, you can go in and get it, or you can go through like the side drive through. You don't have to get out of your car. And this building that I saw on this freeway in Bahia, I'm not saying it didn't look like a Walgreens at all. I'm just saying it had an extension on the building where it was looking like a car could drive up, right? And so I didn't know what that building was. It didn't have any just blatant markers on outside of the building where I could tell what it was. But however it looked, it caught my attention in some kind of way. And I remember there was about six of us in that car. And I remember asking, like, what is that over there? And it was like everybody in the car looked and just kind of like ignored my question as if it didn't exist. And I'm like, obviously, I must have struck onto something that I wasn't supposed to ask. At the time, I didn't know. Later on that day, one of the girls in the family said to me, well, Mark, that's kind of like a place where, people might take prostitutes. They might, get with the person they're having an affair with there. It's just a place where you come, you pay for a couple of hours to hang out, do your thing, and then go back to your business. Right. So it was obvious I had brought up a topic that nobody, people in the car felt uncomfortable about talking about. Right. So that was the first thing. The second thing is, I got to know quite a few men over the years that I lived in Brazil. And I just remember, without getting too much into this business, One of the brothers that I used to talk to was a black man. He had dreadlocks. I never forget. He's a real cool guy, and he just told me how sometimes him and some of his boys get together for get-togethers. They go and they hang out. They have a boys away weekend. They might play soccer. They might have some drinks. They might play cards. Whatever they might do. But part of that getaway thing was they would rent out like I don't know, how would you describe this place? We could say a 304 house if you want to call it that. And they would just go. And it's like, you have a house full of women and they would pay their money. And, one guy would get with a girl and another guy would get with the same girl. And another, it would be, be like 7 or 8 guys, would be like 10, 12 women up in the place. And, the money is paid and, you do your thing. Nobody is having a relationship. It's no long term. It's just, hey, we here for the night. Let's get it on. And then, the weekend is over and they all go back home. Some of these guys are single. Some of them are in long-term relationships. Some of them are married. But this is how they get down. You're just like, hey, this is what we do. So that's what came to mind when I came across this particular article that I want to check out today. I want to share with you today. Today's article is called The High Cost of the Brazilian Side Piece. Half of Brazilian men say save money to spend on women outside of their relationship. Mm. Let's get right into this, okay? According to studies by the Gleaton portal or website, half of Brazilian men save money to spend on women outside a relationship, better known as lovers. What they say, amantes in Portuguese, right? This today's article is courtesy of Lorena Bueri, I think her name is pronounced. And so, as strange as it may seem, the Gleaton website, which specializes in dating and non-monogamous relationships, released a survey this month showing that half of Brazilian men save money to spend on lovers. And because it often goes unnoticed at home, the practice ends up being very common in relationships. The survey also shows that 59% of married men hide part of their wives' salary and 23% hide it in cash, which already causes less suspicion because there is no record, or in this case, evidence, right? Men prefer not to use their credit or debit cards to perform such deeds. Obviously, we know what's going on there. You don't want to you don't want your credit or your debit card statement to come out talking about, he spent 600 or 500 or however much it might be on the 304 house, in another city. Nobody wants that. So obviously you use cash and there's no way to trace that money back. It's just money that got spent, right? Most of the time, betrayal comes from where you least expect it. So Sylvia Hubis, the Gleaton communications director in Spain, and it should say Latin America, says the results prove that Brazilian men are not only unfaithful in relationships, but also in household finances. According to her, the vast majority use a kind of box two to get with one or more lovers, right? Box two, I guess you could like translate that as kind of like, somebody's hidden stash, like, you got some extra money stashed away when you want to get away. That's what they call caixa dois in Portuguese, or box two, literally. I would say that's my secret stash box, right? Without suspicion, the whole act goes unnoticed inside the home. Often when passing the card in motels or hotels, the name becomes fictitious, most often in acronyms that doesn't make one suspect about the purchase. The excuse that the car broke down or an unforeseen event appeared ends up prevailing and nothing is discovered as long as there is an investigation by women inside the house. Listen to that breakdown. So for somebody who's stepping outside of their home, stepping outside of their relationship, a lot of these things are going to come out to cover up the tracks. Well, why wasn't you home at a such and such time? Oh, I got stranded. I got a flat tire. The car broke down or whatever it might be. And obviously, if you're staying in a motel or hotel, for just a couple of hours, obviously you're not going to use your real name. And, I want to make it clear that we all know that this is not something that just goes on in Brazil. In Detroit, we know, if anybody who's familiar with Detroit knows that there's certain areas that just have certain reputations. There's certain little motels where they charge by the hour. Might be a 4 hour stay, a 6 hour stay, a 2 hour stay. They know very well that a person is not here for staying for the night. They're there to, have their pleasure for the night with whoever they're with. And then, they pay their fee and, they part ways and go on about their business. So I clearly don't want to just make this seem like this is something that's going on in Brazil, because whatever city you live in, I'm quite sure where those areas are in whatever city you live in. So Brazil is no different in this manner. It's just a story I wanted to cover for the overall investigation into relationships, divorce, cheating, just what it is to date Brazilian women. You can learn a little bit from all of this, right? Just to get an idea of how the culture goes down. What you hear coming out of Brazil in terms of relationships. So, in the vast majority of cases, men get very dry and end up not wanting to have sexual relations with their wives anymore, because there is satisfaction outside the home. And that is when the suspicion of the reason begins. In many cases, men begin to be followed by a team of detectives specialized in the case. And the woman discovers the betrayal on her husband's part with the help of the contracted company. Companies in this niche have become very common and sought after to perform these services. So, listen to what's going on there. Women have, they have an intuition that their man is tipping out on them. So they hire a company that specializes. Think about that. There's companies out there that specialize in busting partners in a relationship doing something that they probably shouldn't be doing. Obviously, if there's companies that specialize in this, is because it's something that goes on all the time. So, again, name of this piece is the high cost of Brazilian side piece, right? What did you think about this? Did this shatter any ideas of what you think about how relationships work in Brazil? Is it something you kind of expected, or is it just like, okay, you didn't know this, but now I know? What does this make you think of? In this particular article, is talking about specifically Brazilian men, but it could easily apply to Brazilian women as well. But I just want to get your thoughts. Drop a comment in the comment section. Like this video, share this video. Consider subscribing to this channel if you've seen more than a few videos that you found intriguing. Click on that notification bell so that you'll be alerted when I put up my next video. And with that said, I will end this video here and ask you to stop by and check out my new video.